And welcome back to our Brazilian Grand Prix preview. This is the hot lap coming up and what hopefully is going to be one of the more exciting weekends in the 2023 season. But we've had a few good races, haven't we? So we're looking at the FIA rule change. We'll get into that in a sec. We're previewing the Brazilian Grand Prix. Verstappen on not helping Perez. Yes, it's 2022 all over again. And we're going to take a look at last year's results. But let's get into the story on planetf1.com about FIA pit lane impeding ahead of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Finally, it looks as though the FIA are actually going to do something about that, I don't want to say monotonous, but Singapore impeding and then Mexican Grand Prix impeding. I think we all thought after the Mexican Grand Prix that Verstappen and George Russell will potentially be getting a penalty, and they didn't. And it feels like they kind of got away with it. They had, I think, what was a lame excuse. But anyway, so Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso and Russell, they were all summoned to the stewards and later cleared of impeding at the Mexican Grand Prix. However, McLaren boss Stella was calling for changes to be made ahead of the Brazilian Grand Prix, and he apparently has his wish. So he rub that genie lamp. But anyway, from now on, any driver who attempts to create this gap by extending their stay in the fast lane will be deemed to have been driving in an unnecessary slow manner and therefore face punishment from the stewards. In his pre-event notes, which wrote, as per Article 33.4 of the Formula One sporting regulations, drivers are not allowed to go unnecessarily slow, and that includes stopping a car in the fast lane of the pit lane. Now, during the shootout and qualifying, drivers may create a gap between the pit exits. That's the and the safety car 2 line. Any driver who wishes to do so must drive as far to the left as possible to allow other drivers to pass them on the right side of the pit exit road. I mean, what do you guys think? Finally, some common sense in Formula One. But let's get into the Pirelli preview for the Grand Prix. As you can see there, let me just get that graphic up so I can read it with you guys as well. I mean, we're looking at 71 laps, a race distance of 305.879 kilometres. 4.309 kilometres is the circuit length. Lap record, Valtteri Bottas. I don't know why I went Italian there, but the lap record is a 110.540. And as you can see, traction 3, asphalt 3 out of 5, abrasion 4 out of 5, track evolution 4 out of 5, where 5 is obviously the higher number. Tyre stress 3, braking 3, lateral 3, downforce 4. Now remember, not as high as Mexico, but the Brazilian Grand Prix still a bit higher than a lot of other races. And it's got our cambers there. It's the C2, C3, and C4, so kind of middle-ish of the range of the tyres, I guess. From one point, yeah. So not looking too bad there, but I tell you what, it's going to get interesting, isn't it? Will we have tyre degrading? The issue, I think, one of the big issues is this is going to be a sprint race, and I think one of the issues with any sprint races is they've only got one session to set up until we go racing, until Parc Fermé is no more, as in they cannot change the setup anymore. And that's what's going to be really interesting in the Brazilian Grand Prix. And this, funnily enough, is where Red Bull very, very much came unstuck last year, and why I think you had Mercedes that kind of got it more right than Red Bull, ended up finishing with a 1-2 in what was a quite exciting race. But we'll definitely get into that in a bit. So this is, look at that, the Brazil, I think one of my favourite races of the year, one of my favourite racetracks at the very least of the year. On the FIA website, it says basically after the races in the US and Mexico, Brazil is the destination this weekend as teams take part of this final sprint weekend and this final of 3 races in a row. Now, the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace is more commonly referred to as Interlagos, meaning between 2 lakes, I think. And the Drivers' Championship, as we know, is pretty much settled. Been settled for a while. Max Verstappen, funny enough, is the winner. However, with P2, that before Mexico kind of seemed with pretty much 40-ish, a good 34, I think it was 40 points or something, Sergio Perez had over Lewis Hamilton. It's kind of halved, just 20 points. And in those constructor standings, well, you've got Mercedes on 371, Ferrari on 349, and Mexico also boosted, thank you to Daniel Ricciardo, not Tsunoda, but it could have been a lot better, from from pretty much last to 8th. So they've jumped ahead of Alfa Romeo by virtue of Daniel Ricciardo's P7. I mean, it's going to be quite interesting, isn't it? Let me quickly show you the times and the start times. We've got obviously practice 1. This is UK time, so I think add an hour for because obviously our clocks just went back last weekend. So add an hour maybe for Europe. But third of practice 1, which is going to be is the most important practice session because it's the only one. Starts at 2 o'clock, 2 till but 2:30 is lights out, so to speak. Qualifying on the Friday is at 6 o'clock. We've got the sprint shootout at 2 o'clock, the sprint at 6:30, and the Grand Prix starting at 5 o'clock. So quite friendly times, kind of like dinner times, I guess, for some people. But let's go back to, this is a nice, I think it's called Graphic News that I found, which I thought was really thought was quite interesting. As you can see there, it gives us interesting facts about the Brazilian Grand Prix. If you give me 2 seconds, I'm just clicking away. I'm still getting used to this whole camera thing. So the thing from Graphic News, I think .com, it's basically gives you a bit more information, like on last year's results, which we'll get into. But most wins is Alain Prost on 6, as you can see, 1982, 1985, 84 as well, 85, 87, 88, and 90. That's 1982, 84, 85, 87, 88, and 90. Lap record, as we've mentioned, a 110.540. But interestingly, last year, they were quite a bit slower than 2018. George Russell ended up doing a 113.785. Also, what's interesting is McLaren have got the most wins here, 12. Then we've got Ferrari on 11, Williams on 6, Mercedes on 6, Red Bull on 5, and all the others on 9. Interestingly, Jordan have won here as well, and Benetton, which are now Alpine, have won here before. Now, winning strategy, it says 2 stops. It goes soft tyres provide additional grip at start before 2 stints on medium tyres for the duration of the race. That's what they're kind of predicting. But let's see if that is really going to be the case. So I mentioned also a certain Max Verstappen not really going all out to help Sergio Perez. No, it's not 22 all over again. It is 2023. This is on WTF1.com, but there's also on a few other sites. So the article goes on to say, we would like you to find an F1 driver who enjoys team orders because we can bet it would be rather difficult. I get it, but generally they still oblige. But last year in Brazil, we saw a very different response from Max Verstappen. The 3-time champ was the subject of controversy as he refused to let his teammate by. Now, you're probably thinking an order for 6th place, but at the time, Max, as we know, had already clinched the title, and he basically was like, no, Sergio, you're not going through. And it led to quite a bit of tension building at the Red Bull team. While the official reason for Verstappen saying no, we never really found out. The team did issue a statement stating everything was resolved, and they accepted Max's reasoning for refusing to let Sergio by. Ergo, to me, that kind of says Verstappen runs the team and not Christian Horner. It very much reminds me of the whole multi-21, albeit that was on a much bigger, higher level, with Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, and how the team kind of very much changed their tune at the next race after Malaysia. But flash forward to 2023, it says a similar situation. It has the potential to occur. Now, as you know, Verstappen already the champion. Perez is currently P2. Hamilton is on the hunt and closing in. Now, in the press conference, Verstappen was asked that exact question because, of course, he was going to be. And he answered, I think at the end of the day, it shouldn't always matter / depend on me to get the points. But I'm confident in Checo that he can stay ahead because I do think on average we have the faster car. And I think also last year it wasn't well spoken about before we got into the race weekend. But yeah, let's just hope that we don't get into that situation. I think it's better for everyone. Checo, however, had a slightly different answer. He said he was asked in a media session, including the race, whether he could count on Verstappen's support this year. He said, "We haven't talked about it, but I think if a situation arises, I'm sure I would have the support from Max." And they pretty much put awkward next to it, which I completely agree. I could not think of anything more awkward. But I think what was awkward, maybe for Verstappen, was this clash. As you can see, well, my head's kind of in the way. There you go. That clash with Lewis Hamilton last year. That was not good at all, was it? And let's get into the 22 race, which was won by George Russell by 1.5 seconds from good old Lewis Hamilton. And third, I completely forgot that Carlos Sainz ended up being third. At all. I mean, no, I had absolutely no idea that Carlos Sainz was third. So let's get the race results up, shall we? Here we go. Brazil last year. George Russell wins. Let me just share the screen so you can see. There we go. George Russell wins. As I mentioned, Hamilton second, Sainz third, Leclerc fourth, Alonso fifth, Verstappen only sixth, but he did get that penalty and a bit of damage to his car after that clash with Lewis Hamilton, and Perez seventh. Verstappen refusing to let Perez by. Ocon 8th, Bottas 9th, and Stroll ended up in the points in 10th. Vettel 11th, Zhou 12th, Mick Schumacher 13th, Gasly 14th, Albon 15th, Latifi 16th, Tsunoda 17th, Norris not finishing. Had that incident at the start, didn't he? Magnussen not finishing, and Ricciardo. That was a bad race from McLaren, wasn't it, with that double DNF. Now let me see the qualifying grid. There we go. Qualifying was Magnussen on pole. This is for the sprint race, which then went into the grid. Verstappen second, Russell third, Norris fourth, Sainz fifth, Ocon sixth, Alonso seventh, and Hamilton eighth. Now, was that the sprint grid? Or yeah, Hamilton was eighth. There wasn't like a penalty on the sprint grid. He had a bit of a shocker then for qualifying, and Russell was really the man. But Russell was the one that ended up beating, obviously, Verstappen in the sprint race in what was definitely one of the more exciting sprint races of the weekend. So as we're coming into this weekend, I'm kind of fully expecting Max Verstappen to be the man to beat coming into the weekend. However, what I might do is I'm going to quickly type Brazilian GP weather for 2023, because someone has mentioned that it may well be rain showers. It's probably what I should have done earlier, but it says the Sao Paulo Grand Prix gets underway this weekend. Final part of the triple header. This track is best suited for Mercedes. Adding to the fact this is the sprint weekend, and the action could be non-stop, but how much part of the weather is going to play? And he said this is what's interesting. There could be rain showers around on Friday, but as it stands, the sprint and the Grand Prix look to be dry. That is going to be absolutely critical of rain showers, especially for that practice session, because if they, here's the thing here on Formula1.com, if they get the rain showers, oh my gosh, they're not going to be able to set up their cars. So it's going to be really, really interesting. Anyway, I will leave you guys to it. This has been the hot lap. I'm thinking Verstappen potentially on pole. Let's hope, though, for a really, really exciting race. I think Mercedes are going to be behind them and McLaren are going to be behind them. There might be a question mark over Ferrari in the race, but we know they do have that really hot qualifying pace. Where are Aston Martin going to be? Is their decline just going to absolutely continue? I really hope it doesn't, but I can't really see what else when you look at the evidence of the last few races. And how is Daniel Ricciardo going to do? If he continues, is that a bit more closer to that 2024 Red Bull seat? Stay tuned. We'll be back after practice and after qualifying. Speak to you soon.